I think I speak for most of the kids my age when I say that Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes of all time. I mean, last week I talked about Ultimate Alliance, and I even talked about my love of Spider-Man briefly over there too. But the thing about Spider-Man is that while the movies are always more or less always a hit, and all have their individual merits and fan bases, the games are not always of the same caliber. While there are a lot of pretty good ones and a few great ones, the mindset of a lot of people when it comes to an open world Spider-Man game was always, will it be good as Spider-Man 2 swinging? And while I've picked up Spider-Man PS4 pretty recently, I would be hard pressed if I didn't replay Spider-Man 2 one last time on the Xbox before I dived into that one. Let's begin. So, Sam Raimi made a few Spider-Man movies, which range from pretty good to Spider-Man 3. But I would be lying if I said that my favorite thing to come from these movies was the movies themselves. Yes, they partially inspired me to love Spider-Man so much so that the original version of my channel icon was supposed to be a Spider-Man jacket instead of the pink one I have now. I've loved Spider-Man for ages, and this game is part of the reason for that. Now, if you've never played it, it's basically just Spider-Man PS4 before the PS4, to a T. Except now, very loosely following the plot of the Sam Raimi movie. And when I say loosely, I mean fucking loosely. Picture the movie chopped up into 15 or so segments and randomly dropping that story throughout the entire timeline of the game, and completely making up the rest of the story. But that is not a bad thing. They've vastly improved the quality of the story by making Spider-Man do his normal Spider-Man thing, defeating his rogues gallery left and right. Having characters such as the Shocker, the Rhino, the Black Cat, or even Mysterio show up, with them having no relevance or appearance in the movies, and they do this shockingly well. It never feels like too much of a burden on the plot when a character is introduced, and the story holds up even better than the movies in my opinion, and it's probably more fun to play this game than it is to watch the movie. One thing that does not hold up, well, at all, is the visuals. When looking at an older game, we have to think in context, and by older game standards, I'd say it's pretty good. But when you've seen so much better, going back does look really rough. But again, by older standards, I think it's pretty good. Although, the pre-rendered cinematics are just a little terrifying, and overall, the game looks rough around the edges. But this doesn't really stop the game from having some really cool spectacles. The Mysterio Funhouse fight is a standout for me. This lack of visual spectacularness is easily covered up by the voice acting though. If you think the game's presentation is a mess thus far, it's only going to get worse if we look at it this way. These lines very much feel like the actors just phoned it in, and while it's cool they got the actors who played their Hollywood counterparts to voice their characters in the game, it's still pretty weak all over the place.
Oh no, Dr. Connor's class. I got so caught up in what I was doing I forgot all about it.
However, certain characters have pretty great voice acting, the Rhino and Mysterio being two of my favorites. And Bruce Campbell as the narrator is a fun, yet strange inclusion. Yet it makes sense with his cameos in the Raimi movies in mind. And usually I like to talk about the music of games in these reviews, but this game's soundtrack is just so ultimately forgettable. But the menus look pretty cool. I mean, look at this. Pretty cool, eh? So the game looks rough, the story's cool, but that's not much of the game, now is it? Where the game really matters is the gameplay itself, and they blow it out of the fucking water here. I think the best way I can put it is that they put everything that people loved about the new Spider-Man PS4, but they did it first. Swinging through the city, all the webs actually connecting to real buildings, it's a legitimate joy. It's rare that the traversal in a game is so much fun, you want to do that over anything else, and they exceed at it here. The open world is also small enough that it's not a chore to swing across the map, regardless of where you are, with a few exceptions. The Statue of Liberty comes to mind. And oh man, the combat is also a joy. It reminds me of the Arkham games in a sense, where the whole challenge is beating dudes down and dodging when your spider sense requires you to. It's repetitive, sure, but as you play you get hero points to spend on new moves, and these new moves, while some are just basic punches and kicks, some are really cool web moves, and some of them are really fun and you just want to keep doing them over and over again on different people. The combat is super fucking fun, and the boss fights are also fun, most of the time. Scattered through the open world, there's also tokens of locations as collectibles, like buoys, enemy bases, and skyscrapers. These are fine as collectibles, but it's also really hard to get all of them because you kind of just lose track of where you were. And there's also challenges like races and such, which are kind of just there to pad out the runtime. There's also random open world events like robberies or this fucking kid losing his balloon. And they're not horrible, but they serve as a way to get hero points more efficiently, and it makes the world feel more alive. So in conclusion, Spider-Man 2, it's not the definitive Spider-Man game or experience, and it's aged more like milk than anything else, but that doesn't mean it's not a fun time, and if you're sitting down with a buddy or two playing this, you can easily lose yourself laughing at the dialogue. It's not perfect, but I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It's aged poorly, of course, but it's still not bad. If you have a copy lying around, I'd definitely give it a try. Now, I don't know about you, but I really don't think there are enough games about Spider-Man. Clearly, they just really haven't nailed him down yet. See ya!